want to thank all of you for being here with us tonight. While it's true that Google's putting a lot of effort into the developments that you've just heard about, Flutter is an open source project, and it's created and supported by an entire community of SDK contributors, package developers, YouTube creators, and more. And by choosing to join us tonight, you're now part of that community, and we want to hear your voice. So for the next hour or so, we're answering your questions live right here. You can post them in the YouTube live stream comments or tweet using the AskFlutter hashtag, and we'll get to as many as we can. So you're working the streams. When we got a lot of questions so far?
Oh my God, yes, we have a ton of questions, and we've been getting about 2 per second now, which is down from the high of about 7 per second.
All right.
So we're getting a lot of tweets.
Cool. We also have a few drop-in guests lined up from the Flutter engineering team, and we're coming to you from the crowd at Flutter Live. So if you ask a question I can't handle, I'll find somebody that can, and we'll get them up here with me and answer it together. So, all right, Wim, are we ready to go?
Well, let's start with an obvious one. We've been getting a lot of questions. Actually, even before the keynote, we were getting so many people asking us when are maps going to be available on Flutter.
Okay.
Now, we already have the answer to that question, right. But let's go into it a little bit deeper. Can you give us a little demo of how maps are working on Flutter?
Sure, yeah. So full disclosure, we kind of figured this one was definitely coming. So I've got some stuff ready to go on my laptop. Real quick, let's take a look at the code. So one of the nice things, Flutter is completely open source. The SDK, the tools, the language, Dart itself is open source, and the plugins are too. So let's go to our plugins repo. So this is Flutter/plugins. Mm-hmm. Got it up on my laptop, and if you go in here, you can see a bunch of the packages that the team is maintaining and building out. There's stuff for battery, camera, connectivity and things, and way down here, we have Google Maps for Flutter. And so if you're ever curious about this code base, what can Maps do right now, where's it going, this is a great place to go check out. So we have the lib directory, which has the imports. This will have the Google Map widget. This is Flutter, everything's a widget. It also has the map controller and some other things. And then we have the Android and iOS sort of bridge that goes from Dart into the Google Maps SDKs for Android and iOS. And let's see what code I've got here. So here we have our DevRel sample for maps. And this was done by the very talented Kenzie Schmall up at our Portland office, who you know well. Yep. And this is right now up on GitHub in the Flutter/samples repo. That's the one that DevRel uses for our samples. So all this code you can go get right now. And let's take a look at this app. So this is using a Google Map widget. And it does the things you'd kind of expect a Google Map to do. You can pan around, you can zoom in. She's got some places that she's added to this map. She's got a couple sets, and you can see if I switch between them, the map automatically zooms out just like you'd expect. I can go in here and switch terrain types, for example. I can check that, go from the street view to satellite, topographic if you want to know where the mountains are. You can even turn it off, and then back to street view. And as you notice, I'm clicking on buttons on the map that you wouldn't normally see on the Google Map, and that's because they're Flutter widgets. These are things that have been, Kenzie added to this on top using a stack. So
the map widget itself, it's just a widget like any other widget.
It's just a widget. It's doing some things under the hood, but it's still just a widget. You saw in the demo that Philip did, he threw it into a transform, and had his map was tilted like this. That you can play with them just like that. So. Speaking of playing with it, let's mess with this a little bit.
I wanted to ask, how hard is it to add maps then to your app?
So a good way to answer that question would be to just blow away this entire app. So let's try that.
Okay, let's kill it.
So this is the home. This is home. Let's. I'm going to replace everything in the app with just a Google Map. So let's try that. Here's the Google Map widget, and the map. Its constructor takes a single required parameter, which is on map created. And this is a little callback. So to interact with the map, you use a Google Map controller. The controller pattern you may have seen elsewhere in Flutter, the text fields and some of the inputs. This is how you interact with it, change its behavior. And so it has a little callback that'll give you the controller. And so I'm just going to make a spot to hold it. So I'll go up here and make a little Google Map controller. Just like that. And I'll call it Map Controller. And I'm going to assign that down here. So All right, so I've got my widget in place. I've got the controller callback. Let's do a little hot reload. And there we go. So my entire app now is basically just a map. And I can still come in here and do things. If I wanted to, zoom in, I can click and zoom. I can still pan around and things like that. And all right. So let's do something with this. We got the map, we got the controller.
Well, you said before you could add buttons over the Flutter widget, or the map widget. Yeah, let's see what we can do.
Okay, let's add a button, and we can do something when we click the button. So I'll wrap this in. Let's go with a stack. So I'll put this in a stack, and of course, stacks have children rather than a single child. So let me add that. And that's going to be a list. Come down here. Magic of auto formatting, and let's put a button. And I'm going to want this in I'll put this in the lower left-hand corner, just so we know where it is. So use the positions. And so there we go. So bottom, I'll give it a little padding. That's not how you spell bottom. And left, get a little padding there. And then child, I'll give this a raised button. And so our button will need some text. Let's see. Let's move the camera when the button gets put. That's it. How about that? There we go. And we'll give it an on pressed. So every button needs an on pressed callback if it's going to be used. Just for fun, let's give it a color. Let's give it is there a light green material spec? There is a light green. Awesome. Okay. Let's hot reload again. Still got our map. And so we got a button now. Let's move the camera when we get this clicked. So we have the controller. And update. Animate camera. Let's do an animated.
Okay.
And that's going to take a camera update. And that'll do. Let's do a Latin long here. Do you happen to know? Do you know any latitudes and longitudes?
How about for London?
Do you know London?
I sure do.
All right.
51.5 latitude. And, well, let's just say 0. That's actually Greenwich, but it's close by.
All right. I'll put an exclamation semicolon on there. And, oh, wait, that gets a comma.
You want to zoom in a little bit, too?
Yeah. All right, so over here, let's zoom in a little. Oh. Twisted. And let's go ahead and save this. So we're hot reloading again. And let me click the move camera. And there we go. So now we're interacting with this map. In about 5 minutes, we dropped a Google map in here, got the controller, and used it to animate a change to the map.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So not only do we have maps now, full Google Maps, they're really Flutter widgets, and they're really easy to add and manipulate. So
yeah, you can compose with these. They're just like any other widgets. You can get them in here, put things over them, move them around, do what you need to do. Yeah,
that's great.
Yep. And so, like I said, if you have any other questions on this, check out the source code itself. And if you run into any issues or want any other features, file an issue request.
Okay.
All right. All right. So that's maps. What else? What else we got?
Well, I've got a couple of questions. Here's a question from India. We got a lot of questions from India.
Cool.
Probably, I think they win the award for most number of questions, which is doubly amazing because I think it's after midnight
what time is it right now? So
in India. So this is pretty amazing. So the question is, I want to know what the best laptop is for developing Flutter apps. Which are compatible with all the emulators and so forth.
Probably whatever laptop you have.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so Flutter, part of being open, when the team says open, they really mean it. They don't just mean open source. It's you should be able to use the machine that you have, use the tools that you already like, and things like that. So if you're building Flutter apps, you can. These IDEs, this is IntelliJ IDEA that I use, and VS Code, of course, runs on everything, just about everything.
Right,
so Windows machine, Linux machine,
iOS,
OS X, you can run on all of
no, Apple, yeah. Apple. They even run on, you can run this on Chromebooks.
Yeah, and Chromebook as well. And so if you're going to actually build and release an iOS app, you would actually need a MacBook or an Apple machine at that point because their tool chain runs on their machine. So if you want to actually build an IPA and sign it and and do all of that. At that point, you would need an Apple machine, but you could even build it out entirely without touching a MacBook or an Apple,
Right.
So yeah, really, I mean, it's up to you.
Yeah, that is one of the advantages of Flutter, is that you can actually build an iOS app not on a Mac. And then at the last moment, because of Apple's requirements, yes, you have to find a Mac somewhere and do the release build.
Yeah.
But that's it, and send it off to Apple that way. So, if you have a cousin who has an Apple laptop,
Just drop by, release your app.
And just borrow it for a few hours, and there you go. I'm actually going to switch over. We have so many live questions coming in. I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of live questions.
Sure.
One of them is, can I use a Java library in Flutter?
Sure, yeah. So Flutter has a thing called platform channels that can help you with this. Let me pull it up, and we'll go into the laptop here.
Okay.
Let me do platform channels. See if I can find it in one stroke here. There we go. So platform channels is a way for the Dart code in your Flutter app to talk to platform code and interact with native APIs if you want to, or just use the native code. And so you can set up a method channel that will marshal data sort of out of Dart land and into platform land, where you can call Java functions, you can interact with the Android API, or you could call, work with Kotlin code, or on iOS you could call into Objective-C and Swift and interact with those platform APIs. So if you have a Java library that you or your business or your group has invested a lot of time in and would be a little bit difficult to rewrite in Dart natively for Flutter, you can build a platform channel to it and use it that way. You have that ability. Yeah.
Okay, let's go to a related question.
Okay.
This one, where is it coming from? Let me see. This is coming from Lake Zurich. Which is actually in the United States, in Illinois. So,
all right.
It's one of our very few U.S. questions. So the question is, how secure is a platform channel? Is there any chance that somebody could intercept that data, especially if they have a rooted device or something like that?
Sure. This is something I was talking to the engineering team about the other day. So the way platform channels works, you have in your application, you have sort of the Flutter code that's running in Dart. It's built with Dart, it's compiled to native code and run that way. And on the side, you would have some other code that's running, in Android, you would have the Java VM that's running. And on iOS, you have the platform code for iOS that's also running outside of that library made from the Dart. And so there's a memory buffer in your process for the communication between the two of them. But that's within your process. So there is no, IPC interprocess communication required. Nobody's writing to like a named file or named pipe on the system to talk between two different processes, where in theory somebody might have a better way to go in and sniff the traffic or something like that. This is all in one process. So a Flutter app in that regard is as secure as any normal Android or iOS app.
Okay, so I have another live question just came in.
Okay.
Can I use a third-party ad network in my Flutter project?
You're talking to the right person. Before coming to the Flutter team, I worked on the mobile ads team.
I gave that one just for you.
Yeah. So there is an ad mod. There are two ways that you could do this. One is you could use platform channels to interact with that network's mobile SDK. So if you wanted to incorporate, the audience network or something from Oath or in Mobi or something like that, you could take that SDK, build a little bridge using the platform channels to call methods on it, and access it and use it as you would otherwise normally. The other option that you have, and I would make sure that you test this thoroughly because it's not something I've tested personally. You could use the Flutter Firebase AdMob plugin to use AdMob mediation. So AdMob has mediation, which is a way to use multiple ad networks in concert within a single app, where AdMob sort of manages which network shows an ad based on which one is providing the most revenue at that particular moment. And because the plugin for AdMob is using the native AdMob SDK, the native Google Mobile Ads SDK, that is still available to you. So if you have a mediated ad unit, give it a try with that plugin and see how it goes. I think it'll more than likely work fine.
Okay. Let me ask another live one.
Okay.
Can Dart be a standalone programming language?
Dart? is a standalone programming
It
language.
absolutely is, yes. So yes, it can. In fact, it is.
I mean, we obviously on the Flutter team, we talk about Dart mostly within the scope of mobile applications.
Right.
That's what we use it for. But I mean, Dart for the web, there's Angular Dart. It's being used all over the place.
Our own website, the pub website, is using Dart to build on the server to build a website as well.
Yeah, and we have Eero Kronka, who's actually here. His Inkino application shares Dart code in between a mobile application built with Flutter and an Angular Dart application as well. So that's definitely possible. There's also server-side Dart. There are people building server applications with Dart, so it's a very portable language.
That's right. Okay. I think I'm going to ask, hold on, let me find this new one coming in over here. So we have a couple of questions that are sort of related. They're saying, at one end of the spectrum is how do I get started in Flutter?
Okay.
And we had one question that said, I know JavaScript, can I learn Flutter and Dart very easily with it? And at the other end of the spectrum, how do I become an expert in Flutter?
So the two, how do I get on the path and how do I get to the end?
Right, and I did that because I just noticed the Pooja standing.
Okay, Pooja's over there, yes. Please, you would be great for this question. Please come and join us and sit down.
Join us.
All right. You got the microphone there. Hello.
Yeah, this is Pooja.
This is Pooja, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
And so you recently wrote an article about your path from becoming a complete Flutter newbie to a more seasoned coder, right?
Yes.
And so let me pull that up on my laptop, actually. Can you tell us, for the person who asked about getting started, how did you get started?
I actually got started because I joined this company and they wanted me to work in Flutter, so I learned Flutter. And that's how I started. But I will tell you how I started with Flutter. What I did is that I worked on a lot of designs, I mean, Flutter is so great for designing apps. Well, I wanted to, let's just redesign every app that I have, that I know. Let's redesign it in Flutter.
That sounds like a problem, It's so easy, you want to redo everything.
I wanted to see if Flutter has the capability to actually make it possible for me to redesign all my favorite apps.
Okay.
And I could actually make apps in one day, like the entire app in one day, all the screens and everything. And that's how I was very sure this is it.
Yeah.
This is what I want to do.
That's right.
I mean, I did not switch, but I did kind of go from Android to Flutter because of it, because it's so amazing to work with Flutter.
And it's not like those Android skills aren't used. You still need them, right?
Yeah, we still need them. You cannot, you can start Android, you can start Flutter without Android, but you will have to come back to Android some point or the other if you want to work with native channels. I mean, if you want to make a fuller app, you have to know a bit of Android or maybe iOS or whatever you want.
That definitely helps.
So what were some of the things that helped you when you were getting started? So we talked a little bit about what you were working on. Did you look for articles? Did you look for videos? Did you look for sample code? Those sorts of things?
I actually looked, first I went to the code labs. Okay, so I checked out the code labs.
Okay.
It was actually very helpful. I wanted to try out the Java to Dart code lab just to see how Dart is like, and it's pretty easy. I actually did learn Dart in a day. Okay.
Once you get past seeing this in a constructor, it's fine, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's actually pretty easy. I don't know. Other languages, JavaScript, whatever, they're not so easy. So I was convinced that day. And I did try out some articles, talks by Google, in the Google I.O. and Google developers.
Flutter.io, Docs and Code Lab?
Yes. And there are a lot of GitHub repositories out there and a lot of other tutorials in YouTube, and they all helped you a lot. I mean, I'm writing tutorials on Flutter right now, so you can check them out in Medium if you want to.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, one of the problems we have as the DevRel team is sometimes it's hard to keep up with the amount of content being made by the community.
Yes.
Right.
That's why our GitHub repo with samples actually links out to a number of samples that our team didn't create. We just think are really, really good,
Yeah, you should check out that because they have really accumulated the best articles and resources that's possible for you to learn Flutter. So check that out.
And it's really great having people in the community writing articles. I remember at one point where I felt like I had to write all the articles, but then it got to the point where I was trying to read all the articles that would be written. I've totally given up on that. There's like so much coming out.
Same here. I mean, in the beginning, I used to read all the articles that used to come.
Yeah.
Now, I think I've missed out almost 50%. I mean, it's kind of like all bookmarked. And like, when I have time, okay, I'll read them then.
So tell us a little bit about what you're working on right now.
So right now, it's not like a project, but I am going to go back to India and I'm going to give a talk at a college and tell them about Flutter. Because it's very, very required for college people to actually know about Flutter. Because you can actually tell the employees, but it depends on the companies what they're using. But college students, they are going to graduate with that knowledge and they are going to tell other people to try it out Flutter. So let's target the colleges first. As a college student myself, I'm targeting the college student in India. If you are wanting me to talk about Flutter in any of the college in India, hi. So yes, that's what I'm going to work on now as soon as I go back to India.
So we're almost out of time, but I have one more quick question. So you watched the keynote, right? So what was your favorite thing in the keynote?
The square. The square, yes. I mean, I was completely shocked. I was completely shocked that you just working with square right now. And yes, also the 2 dimensions thing. Oh my God, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Honestly speaking, this was really the best keynote because every 5 minutes I was like, what?
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, they put a lot of effort into it. So we're going to move on to some more questions. Thank you so much for sitting down with us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, guys. You're doing a great job.
Thanks for letting us drag you up here.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
There you go. Right that way, and take the microphone with you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
All right.
So we have...
want to do some live stream questions?
Yeah, so we're going to take a short break in a little while, and afterwards we're going to have Eric Seidel from the engineering team, who you just saw in the keynote. He's actually going to sit down with us. But we have a little more time. Let's take a few questions from YouTube. You want to look at the live stream?
Yeah, if you want to do that. And while you're looking up some questions on there, I have a couple more that have come in. Actually, here's a good one because I can answer this one. We have a question from Nebraska, from the U.S. It says, is there something similar to build flavors in Android? And it's true. You can do build flavors. It's not really built into it, but for example, one of the developing companies that I work with is called AppTree, and all of their stuff, it comes in flavors. They actually have an app which they build a flavor for every single customer. So you can do that's pretty far out.
Wow.
And they have, I don't know, I'm not even sure I can say how many customers they have because it's not public information. But they build for places like Stanford or for companies like McDonald's. They build an app and they have to customize it for every single customer, and they do that with flavors. So you can definitely do that. And the other thing that's amazing about what they do, they not only do that on Android, they do that on iOS, and they do that on their web app. So all three of them, because they have to deliver all three to every customer, and they have to have a separate flavor for it.
Interesting.
So it's definitely possible to do.
They put out some open source code too, AppTree does, right?
The what?
They put out some open source code of various kinds, right?
Yeah. They've written a lot of articles.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if they've written an article about doing flavors yet, but I should bug them to write something like that.
Maybe we can talk them into it.
Yeah, I hope so. Anyway, did you find something?
Yeah, let's look at this. So we have some things in here, and let's take a look at this. So, when are you planning to support AR or VR development? Greetings from the Dominican Republic. Hey, cool.
So when are we going to augmented reality
I think that one's a little bit down the road. I don't know.
I think so too.
I think there's some other things sort of before that one.
Part of the reason for that is so far Flutter is really concentrating on 2D graphics, and in order to do AR, I mean, you can do it with a certain amount of 2D graphics, but it really works better with 3D. So I think, because you do need to be able to do perspective and stuff like that. So I think that's probably something that will happen. I'm just not sure when. It's not on our roadmap right now.
Let me see what else we have. Can I integrate my existing Android project with Flutter?
Can you?
You can. Many people have done this.
That's true.
Yeah. So this is something that's being worked on right now, but you can go and look at it, add to an application. A number of people with larger applications have found ways to integrate a single Flutter activity into their app. You can also have a Flutter activity in Android that launches a native activity, platform activity, to show platform code that way. And similarly on iOS, you can have a view controller that's doing Flutter launch a platform one, or vice versa.
And backing up a little bit, there's sort of two ways to go about doing that. One is, the question was, can you add Flutter to an existing application? And you've talked to that. But actually, another way to look at it is that you can actually convert the entire application to be a Flutter application, but then plug in native code from both platforms into it. So, you could either do it as, all right, here's just a piece of Flutter that we're going to put in as a single view, or you can say, okay, the whole thing is Flutter, but we're going to put a lot of native code. And they're both good ways to do it. The latter is actually easier in some ways, even though it sounds like it would be harder. But it's easier just because, if you have two separate applications, like you have an iOS and an Android app, and you have to put Flutter into both of them, you have to do that in two different ways, and you no longer have a cross-platform solution. So you're going to be modifying two different code bases at the same time. Whereas if you go the other way, the code that you haven't written in Flutter stays the same, but you can just feed that into a single application. So both work. That's probably more detail than people need, but anyway, it's definitely something you can do.
For more information on this, you can check out the GitHub Flutter/Flutter is the repo with the SDK, and you can actually go in and look at how add to app is progressing. There's a number of ways that they're trying to make sure it's possible, as easy as possible to mix native with Flutter, and look for add to app, and you can find the code that's being worked on right now.